Here. How's it going, everyone? This is Brad Williams with Over 40 Fitness Hacks. I have with me my new season co-star, Mr. David Grant. How's it going, David?
Good, man. Hello from Stuttgart, Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I think podcasts are pretty wild. It's cool how we can it's the cool side of globalization, right?
Absolutely. Well, let's transition to our next topic. Before we started the show, you were talking about the four main things to look at as far as overall fitness, as far as how it relates to pain and staying pain free. So I wanted that's perfect for my over 40 audience. As both of us are over 40 now too, kind of dabbling in this realm of injuries and pain and everything. So I'll let you go kind of more in the specifics.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm 40 right now. I turned 41 in the year of 2022. So Germany says a little bit differently. They talk about the year you turn the age up. So I turned 40 last year, and I've never felt better. I'm on average doing, because I'm dancing so much. I'm a big salsa dancer, for everyone out there doesn't know. Not like a professional. It's just like my hobby. And because dancing, in steps, I've got this Oura ring that always counts my steps. And on average, because I'm dancing 3-4 nights a week, 2 hours usually courses, I'm hitting around 20, 25, 30,000 steps a day. Because it's counting, Europe, you walk a lot, right? You walk to the bus, you walk to the train, I walk to my office, I walk around, whatever. And then I have all the dancing. And sometimes I even walk to the dance studio, which is a 30-minute walk and back. And what I've recognized is, I used to say, and this was going to be our topic actually, is your muscles are not weak. For the most part, I would agree with that. But sometimes clients come in and actually their muscles are weak, and that is the problem. I think we over focus on this idea that everything seems to be weak. We have a professional athlete that can squat 200, 200 kilos or something ridiculous. And we yet somehow think his internal rotators on his hip is weak, and he's yet sprinting. He's doing everything. And so sometimes I think we over prescribe this weakness category. But yeah, to answer your question, I joke, and I won't say the word just because I don't know what we're allowed to say here. But the joke is, I teach people how to un-F themselves. And the four things I focus on, 4.5, if you will, is one, we look at movement. I mean, if you're not moving correctly, you're going to obviously hurt yourself. And so we need to teach the education of movement. If someone's heel striking when they're running, or they're not heel striking when they're walking, we need to educate them on how to move. And if you think of your corporate attorneys that buy the most expensive shoes out there and become joggers overnight because now they got the time and the money, that's a disaster, because running is a skill, and so is jogging, so is walking. And so you got movement. You've got mobility, which in my definition, mobility is like manual massage, basically. You do to yourself. So tennis balls, foam rollers, if your shoulders are shrugged up because you've got some stress and you're not paying attention and you're doing some, I don't know, when I used to do my math homework, my shoulders would kind of raise and shrug. I don't need to do a stretch to get them to drop down. I just need to be A, aware of it, movement, B, almost aware neurologically that there's tension there. So if I were to take if somebody were to massage me there, or I were to do a tennis ball exercise against the wall or something, I would automatically drop my shoulders down. So that would be mobility. Stretching, I like to say positional stretching. So let's get you in a position so the body can find the tightest link, if you will, versus you trying to guess what it is. You've got strength. Yeah. Are you able to do the exercise you need to? And a lot of times in the shoulders is where I see a bunch of the mothers I work with, no offense to the ladies out there, but they have shoulder pain, and I will put them in like a push-up position. They don't need to do a push-up position. They just need to get in the position. And right away you see this arching at this kyphosis in their back, and they're searching for this tension somewhere else, where it's almost like they're trying to put bone on bone and like ligament on ligament, because they don't have the strength in order to hold a good position. And so that is where I'm like, oh, okay, well then maybe the mobility and stretching, especially if they're very like hypermobile, we shouldn't focus on that. Maybe then we need to look at their strength. So to recap the four, it's movement, mobility, strength, movement, mobility, stretching,
Stretching and
strength. And then the fifth one is kind of like a joke where I just say, if those four things don't seem to fix the issue, then maybe you've got like a tumor in your shoulder, or you've got like bone cancer. I don't want to joke about that too much. Yeah. Yeah. Or you just need an MRI and something's torn. And I don't want to joke about bone cancer or anything like that, because maybe your listeners have that. It's not a funny topic. But the point is, it's going to be the smallest percentage of the population. And so if we can rule that out by someone getting an MRI, an X-ray, seeing a doctor, ultrasound, CT scan, sorry, we say them differently in German, then we know that's not the case. And then we just need to find out from the four that I mentioned, movement, stretching, mobility, and strength, what one the person is lacking in and what the ratio is. Maybe someone that's hypermobile, they're 90% weak, and that's what we need to focus on. Maybe somebody else, it's a little bit of a different ratio. And when we start to play with those four pillars, if you will, I mean, that is what makes someone broken. Because at the end of the day, I believe the default of the body should be healthy, happy, and strong. And if it's not, those are 4/5 great categories to start with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you know, I talked to numerous different people about athleticism, and I still like putting it out there to my audience that, you know, when we talk about athleticism and everything, it's not just for high-performing athletes. All of us at any age, all the way to 80 years old, can have an athletic, fully functioning body. We don't need to be playing sports. So all those four pillars you just mentioned can even be outside of the, you know, the sports world too. So everyone should be mobile, stretched, you know, all those things.
I'll go one on top, and sorry to cut you off. I'll go one on top. I don't even basically have any athletes anymore. I have Jacob Johnson, the dude that just went to the Raiders, because he trains with the strength coach that I work with, because he comes from Stuttgart.
Oh, thank you for my fantasy team.
What's that?
I had him on my fantasy team.
Yeah, really? Yeah, super cool guy. Very, very, very nice guy. And completely fluent in English. Obviously, you hear that when he speaks, but also German. So very great guy. And but other than that, man, I'm literally working on, I would say, 45-plus-year-old contractors, so engineers and things like that are working for the military over in Germany, so Americans, or their wives or kids. I don't work with athletes really anymore. I always joke and say Germany doesn't have any. Yeah. So I just, so for the listeners that are listening to this, I'm doing this so I can go to the salsa club after and dance a few hours. And I got 3 hours of salsa class tomorrow, and I'm training for some men's solo team or whatever. And so for me, man, I just want to be able to dance, have fun, and be not broken. And I'm 40. So I just, you know, what I learned works for me in those four pillars. I just relate it to my clients. I relate it to my people on Instagram and YouTube. And I always hear the feedback and just try to optimize it so I can, you know, always create a better template, a better formula.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about over here in the States, we're, you know, from the personal training world, we're real big into the functional movement screening, the FMS. How do you guys use FMS, or just kind of variation?
Yeah, but yeah, for sure. And you know what? I think what was it? What's his name again? Not Tom Cook. Greg
Cook, I think, right?
Greg Cook, right? I'm going blank on it. I think he's a really good guy, and I think his view in everything is fantastic. But one of the things that this is nothing against him. This is just something maybe that your listeners can pay attention to next time they do it. Is what I've always thought was interesting is someone will do something like that, and nobody's every time I see it, I'll speak from my own personal experience. Yeah. Nobody ever pays attention to the person if they have shoes on and if they have shoes off, and if they keep the shoes on and the shoes off the first and the second time. So maybe things have changed, but every single time I've seen it, I've been at some of the biggest academies in the world, and they'll do it, and the athlete might have their shoes on. And I'm like, yo, those Air Maxes have a 9mm, 12, 13mm heel drop in them. Like, okay, fair enough. But then when we retest it, we need to make sure the athlete has the same shoes on. Yeah, because we all know with the squat, the Achilles is usually the linchpin for everybody. And so I see those things, and I get what they're trying to do. But the problem is we're coaching someone how to do the functional movement screen. And I think with that, we're going at it with a limited knowledge on what we're trying to see. So I'm not against them. I think it's definitely good if somebody would could create something better, it would be
Yeah.
out by now. And I think that's where it gets a bit difficult. So we see it sometimes here, but I think more and more and more, we're starting, the therapists and the trainers are starting to kind of create their own version of it, just because they also see the holes, the problems with the actual screen itself.
Yeah. Well, I think it too, for at least the personal trainer level, before you get up to physical therapy and the higher stuff, just having some knowledge and start from somewhere. That's good that there's, a certification like that. And of course, once you get more into the industry, experience is key, meeting other people, finding and seeing those holes, and then you create your own programs.
Well, I think the other thing that's nice about the functional movement screen, and yeah, of course, I'm kind of being hard on it, is also what I recognize when I used to speak with the trainers and when I speak at the university with the high school kids, with the college kids, sorry, is I remember some trainers would go into the functional movement screen, and they would come back out and they'd be like, wow, I never thought I would enjoy that education so much. And I'm like, oh, really? And then that same guy might go do an Olympic weightlifting certification and be like, man, that is totally not me. And so a lot of times I enjoy the certifications for the students or for the personal trainers entry level, because it's like, it is literally telling them what their passion is. Yeah, because many of them don't know it. If they're like, oh, that was amazing, yeah, that was a little bit boring, I'm like, then listen to what your body is listen to what you're telling yourself.
Go to a different field.
or lean in that direction, right? Yeah, because I mean, like you said, personal trainers can totally specialize. And if someone's like, man, you know what, David said that thing about the shoes, I never thought about that. It's common sense, but common sense is not always common practice. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And you know what, he's right. I'm going to lean in hard on the functional movement screen and learning about the body, where somebody might be like, well, I was a sprinter in high school, I got great mechanics, I want to help kids sprint. And I think that's cool, because then people can truly get passionate and understand that they can really lean in on what they enjoy, because then they're going to learn more, they're going to be better at it, and they're just going to enjoy their job more.
Yep. That's the main thing too. Yeah, it just morphs into that.
I think so. I mean, look at you with your podcast, man. How did that start? And now look at you, right? If I would have told you 10 years ago you're doing a podcast, you would have told me to take a hike.
Yeah. No, going from 3 gyms and trying to go that route and scale and that breaking down, and COVID happening, and then then I just started the podcast 2 years ago, and I really didn't start pushing it till not even a year ago, like 9 months ago, and like really got into it, really enjoy like interviewing people, and now it's like a passion of mine just doing this. So
well, when we met the first time about having this, I mean, I noticed it right away. I was like, yeah, so I've got this podcast, I don't really know what I'm doing, and you lit up. You're like, oh, so if you want to do this and you want to go that way, and it was just you saw it right away. Yeah. And I guarantee if I'm like, hey, what about working at a gym? I'm sure your level of like energy would have just like plummeted. Yeah. Like, so I mean, yeah, exactly. So I think so many times, I mean, just in life, right? There the writing's on the wall. Our body, just like with pain, I always say pain is just, the language of your body trying to tell you something needs to change. So like, don't take ibuprofen and unplug the, brake light actually, or unplug the check engine light, actually check the engine and see what's wrong. Exactly. But it's the same thing with conversation. Like, I think if any good parent were to just listen to their kid, and when he lit up about something, he'd be like, well, hey man, we should probably lean in that direction.
Exactly. I hear you. Well, so David, how can my audience get a hold of you? Do you have a website or any social media links that you usually use that you can throw out there for them?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is, I'll tell you the confusing one, granttrainingsystems.com. But luckily I was smart enough to buy the domain unbreakableback.com. So that is much easier to memorize. So unbreakableback.com would be my website. It's got all my offers about me, a free call where you can chat with me about how I can help you. It's called the Learn More call. As you probably can tell from the last hour, I'm not much of a sales guy. I just like to talk. And then my Instagram handle is probably the other biggest one. I've got 24,000, and that's Rehab GTS. And GTS stands for Grant Training Systems. So Rehab GTS. And both, I would say those two platforms right now are probably the website and Instagram are the biggest I've got right now.
Okay, awesome. And my audience always know, and I say this every single time, but I always throw those links in the podcast description so they can just click on it too. So if you're listening, don't worry, you can go back and click right on there and get to David. So David, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. This has just been awesome, and love what you're doing. I love doing my job, and this is just great getting the word out there. So appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's been a great time. And like I said before the show started, man, I got some interesting guests I'll pitch you to. Yeah, because they're all, I think a lot of us really value what you're doing, right? Because I mean, running a podcast is, I mean, we all listen to them, right? But we don't all do them. So I think there's, for the first time, mutual respect on both sides. I mean, if you think about like CNN and MSNBC, I think anybody has respect on the other end. People are there for themselves on both sides. And so I think, yeah, what you're doing, man, my hat's off to you. I think it's awesome. And I'm more than happy to be, 1 hour, 1 minute and 43-second part of it.
Awesome. Well, I can see your feet moving. I know you got the dancing feet.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think people are waiting, right?
So, yeah, thanks once again, and we'll get you back on the show sooner than later.
Yeah, cool. Perfect, man. I'm always around.
All right. Thank you.